If you have ever been interested on the roguelike genre, this game is a great place to start. If you are a veteran, going back to the basics can always be a fun experience. Dragon Crystal was released in 1991 for the Game Gear and Master System. It has the essentials of a roguelike game, like randomly generated stages, turn-based gameplay, a hunger system, and so on. Despite some minor details, the two versions are exactly the same. There's not much in terms of a story. All information you have is written on the box of the game. You're caught in a fantastic world of unearthly beauty and deadly demons. You will pass through 30 worlds in search of the magic goblet. There is no way out of this musical nightmare until you find it. Except for the musical nightmare part, that actually seems like enough explanation. The controls are simple. Directional buttons are used not only to move around but also to attack enemies, while buttons 1 and 2 are used for picking items and menu control. Since it is a turn-based game, there's no need for a pause button, so the start button is used to speed or slow down movement. Every level is randomly generated, meaning there is no point in memorizing the location of anything. You need to explore the whole map in order to find different rooms, where you might find new equipment, items, food, and enemies. Also, in one of the rooms, you'll find a star-shaped tile, which will transport you to the next stage. Once you enter it, you cannot go back, so be careful when walking around on a room. It's quite easy to enter the next stage by accident, and you don't want to do that until you have searched the whole map. As you progress to the next stages, enemies get tougher and more dangerous, so you have to do your best to kill everything you can and collect as much as possible before moving on. If you're not familiar with that kind of game, this is how things work when it comes to gameplay. Being a turn-based game, it means that nothing will happen until you take an action. So even if it looks like the enemies are moving because they have a standing animation, they will only move or attack after you perform an action. It's like the entire world moves one step at a time, and until you take a step, it stays frozen. Following you, there's an egg that eventually hatches into a dragon. While it doesn't actually attack, it takes up the space behind you, and that is useful because it prevents enemies from attacking you from behind, and with some clever movement it can help you from being surrounded by enemies. Weapons and armors can be found around and just need to be equipped. Scrolls, rods, potions and rings are all unidentified at first, being just named after its color, a blue ring or a red potion for example. You need to equip the rings in order to find out what they really are, and use the items in order to see what they do. The bad part is, some of the equipment might be cursed, and some of the items might actually hurt you. The good part is, you only need to do that once. Once you have identified a red potion for example, all the red potions you find will already be identified. Whenever you try out some new item, keep an eye out for the dialogue screen and see what the character says. It might be useful to help you know exactly what does what. Again, it's of no use to try and memorize the colors and effects of items. They are also randomized every time you start a new game. Scrolls can be used at any time. They might increase your attack, remove a curse, or even summon an enemy, so watch out. Rods are used to cast spells at enemies, so only use them when facing an enemy, even if you are a few steps back. They might cause magic damage, transform the enemy into another one, or even make you level down. Potions can be either used or thrown at enemies in order to find out what they are. They heal, cure poison, cause paralysis, and so on. A bad potion can always be a good weapon. Rings need to be equipped. They go from rings that increase attack and defense to rings that make you warp around randomly. Any item you don't want can always be thrown at enemies. One important aspect of the game is the hunger system. It can go from 99 to 0 and decreases over time. If it's above 0, then just by walking around your health will regenerate. If it reaches 0, you will begin to lose health instead. You can also find money around. It can be used to continue in case you die. Provided you have enough money, you can continue up to 3 times. Every now and then, if you see a big area with no apparent entrance, try searching the walls for a secret passage. It seems to happen more often on later stages. Be smart. Lure enemies one by one, use your dragon to protect yourself, run away if needed, and try to identify as much as you can early on. Roguelike games can be a lot of fun provided you are patient enough to play them. There are not that many out there, especially on the Master System and Game Gear, but Dragon Crystal can be enjoyed by both veterans and rookies to the genre. It's definitely worth giving a second chance to, or even a first if you haven't before.